Well, one more minute.
One more minute.
Because I wanted to ask you something. So has Jeannie Nakamura been around? Or?
She hasn't been, although I think she still contributes, but she hasn't been here for years. I bet I haven't seen Jeannie in 2 years. No, almost everybody, when COVID hit, we were declining before COVID. But when COVID hit, it was like a nuclear bomb on this place.
Testing.
We've done phone campaigns, we've had cookouts, we've tried to make personal contact. Nobody will answer the phone. We've sent letters. You can't get a hold of it.
Do you know where the little thing is that it's
I sent it down.
Do you want help with the chalice lighting? Did you want help, Miriam?
You want one?
You're going to be up here first. You don't want. I don't want.
It's on the chalice, Kathy. I need a match.
Want us to help with the chalice lighting?
If you wouldn't mind lighting it, assuming we can find a.
No, I don't know.
We need matches.
Mother Earth, my dear, you are divine. Land and sea and starlight, all those upon you shine. Mother Earth, my dear, we feel your warm embrace. Spirits, God, and creatures all live and love within your grace. Oh, it was a great day, the day of your creation. The heavens sang a song as you sprung out from a star. And it was a great day, that day of your creation. Your harmony lives through us, your children we are.
What stuff?
Mother Earth,
up here.
My dear,
There it is.
you are divine. Land and sea and starlight, all those upon you shine. Mother Earth, my dear, we feel your warm embrace. Spirit, God, and creatures all live and love within your grace.
Good morning. Welcome on this beautiful sunny day. My name's Alice Martin, and I am chairman of the board. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-ended search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people into our community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We cover it all. We especially welcome those of you who may be worshiping with us for the first time. We invite you to join us after service downstairs for coffee and snacks so that we may get to know each other better. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community. If you would like more information about the congregation, please ask any board member or Reverend Patrick Price. And I promised I'd say hi to Lana. Hi, Lana. Thank you.
I invite the spotlight up for today.
My name is Doug McCullum. You will be hearing quite a few times, hopefully, about a special event on September 26th. It's an unnamed event, but it's basically a potluck transition. Friday the 23rd. I'm sorry. Thank you. And when you hear about it, the correct date will be clearly delineated. It is a special event having to do with the transition team, introducing all of us to that through the interim process. Reverend Sharon Dittmer from UUA will be here. Like I said, it's an all-church potluck. And my job basically today, you will be hearing about this electronically, but anyone who would like to respond using a paper RSVP is to contact Barb Thompson. There she is. So Barb will have those forms for you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lori McCullum. I'm going to read our opening words today. The moral covenant of reciprocity calls us to honor our responsibilities for all we have been given, for all that we have taken. It's our turn now, long overdue. Let us hold a giveaway for Mother Earth, spread our blankets out for her and pile them high with gifts of our own making. Imagine the books, the paintings, the poems, the clever machines, the compassionate acts, the transcendent ideas, the perfect tools, the fierce defense of all that has been given, gifts of mind, hands, heart, voice, and vision, all offered up on behalf of the earth. Whatever our gift, we are called to give it and to dance for the renewal of the world, in return for the privilege of breath. And now let's light our chalice. The words, I believe, are on the screen, or will be. There they are. In the light of truth, in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to inspire. I would like to introduce, before we go further, our speakers for today. We invited from the UU Society in Iowa City and 100 Grannies, Miriam Kashia and Sally Hartman. They're going to explore one of the latest affronts to the earth, 3 massive carbon capture pipelines proposed to run through Iowa and Illinois. So they will be telling you more about themselves when it's their turn. And right now, we are ready for our hymn. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is also Miriam. This is a new one for us. You'll find the music and lyrics as an insert, and Aline is going to play through it entirely through it once before I invite you to sing all together. Please rise in body and or spirit. mountain. We are blessed by every mountain, every mountain makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every mountain feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth. Ocean, we are blessed by every ocean, every ocean makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every ocean feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth.
I'd like to invite your children down for a story this morning. Anybody else? Come on down. Okay. I was suggested this book by our teacher today, and it's very interesting. It's called We Are Water Protectors. You can tell me what protectors mean. What happens when you protect something? That's right. Trying to keep safe. Very good. This book was written and illustrated by two indigenous women, and I believe at least one of them was from the Ojibwe tribe. They have worked very hard at protecting our waters. Now, you get the story. Yeah, so here's the question: why do they have to do this? So we're going to learn a whole lot more about that today. But a lot of our waters have been badly polluted. Right? This is a story told in the Ojibwe. Water is the first medicine that comes from we come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body, and it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land. Spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they were told that it wouldn't come for many, many years. Now the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. But take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together to stand for the water, stand as one against the black snake. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes, the earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, track down my face, track down my people's faces. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors came before us. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is into the fight of its life.
And now it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to pass the basket. Half of our offering goes to a local organization. I'm not sure who our organization is for September. Does anyone know? Pardon? Immigration, right? And I don't know if anyone here has the technology to check online when we do Joys and Sorrows to see if anyone on YouTube has posted any notices. Can you do that, Hannah? Okay. So when we get ready for Joys and Sorrows. So now it is time for our offering.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Thompson, a member of the pastoral care team. As we gather today, we are aware of hidden joys and sorrows in all our hearts. In this time of sharing, we take a moment to read from the book of Joys and Sorrows, those personal life events you have chosen to share with us. And I looked online, I didn't see anything. Okay. We have several this morning. From Gail Springer, both a joy and a sorrow. It's been 10 years since my dad passed. I miss him every day, but I'm joyful to see him in my children. From Anne Marie. Much appreciation for Jeff Danielson coming to my rescue to reconnect the drainage tube, and to Doug McCullum for pitching in at a moment's notice. And finally, from the family of Katie Jones. Her family celebrated her life here yesterday, and they left a basket of wildflower seed packets in her memory. And it's in a basket just as you go out. It's on the welcome table. So they invite you to please take some seeds as you leave the sanctuary today. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in beloved community as we share a time of silent meditation. May we open our hearts and minds to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the balm of love. For what has been shared and for what remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. We close our meditation with the words of L.R. Nust. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go, love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I've been in this sacred space many, many times, and I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite places in the Quad Cities. I always love coming in here, and it's always just a really warm experience because of the windows and everything, and so you should be very, very, very proud of this wonderful space that you get to worship in every week. So apparently I've written more songs that have nature as kind of a backdrop than I thought. And so so I had a song that's listed in your bulletin, but then I found another one that I liked even better. So I'll be doing that. It's called Ottertail Moon, which is based on lots of trips up to Ottertail County in Minnesota, where my son and his family live. And so this is called Ottertail Moon. so hard, living big city ways. I dream of halcyon days, oh, where the sunlight kisses the lake and the call of the loon blesses my soul. I work this old 9 to 5, oh, but I feel barely alive, and I long for those tall northern pines and a big harvest moon rising above. Ottertail moon calling me home. Ottertail moon, back where I belong. As the sun is setting and the moon's on the rise, I'll be in Ottertail County till the day that I die. Oh, I miss the small town days, Friday night football and a cheer in each play, and then a cold beer at the 103 Grill. Family and friends as the moon shines bright. Ottertail moon calling me home. Ottertail moon, back where I belong. As the sun is setting and the moon's on the rise, I'll be in Ottertail County till the day that I die. Oh, it's time to make some changes, and it's time to go back home, and it's time to live under that Ottertail moon before time slips away. Before my time slips away, yeah. Ottertail moon, oh, calling me home. Ottertail moon, oh, back where I belong. As the sun is setting and the moon's on the rise, I'll be in Ottertail County till the day that I die. I'll walk the Red River Valley till the day that I die.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. It is a sunny day somewhere. My name is Sally Hartman, and Miriam and I are going to share our stories about our journeys in environmentalism. Keepers of the earth. Are you keepers of the earth? We have our 7th principle. And are the 100 grannies for a livable future keepers of the earth? Miriam and I, she says yes. I think of keepers of the earth, and I think that we aspire to be keepers of the earth. But the best keepers of the earth are the indigenous peoples. I would like to take a minute to recognize all of the peoples, well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, the indigenous peoples that inhabited this space here before we came. The Sac and Fox, called the Meskwaki, the Sioux, the Lakota, the Iowa, the Illini, the Oto, the Missouri. I might have missed some. But rather than just talk about their names, let's recognize the gifts that they gave to Mother Earth. I should say the gifts they continue to give to Mother Earth as well. When I think of these gifts that the indigenous people give to us, I relate that to my own experience. So I'm going to talk about 3 experiences that I've had that relate to the gifts from the indigenous peoples. First, I'm going to talk about ingenuity, and that lesson comes from the Meskwaki. I'm going to talk about solidarity, which I witnessed in North Dakota. And I'm going to talk about resistance, fiery resistance, by the Ojibwe in North Dakota, or northern Minnesota, sorry. I think I really remember very well a guest we had, Jonathan Buffalo, a Meskwaki from Iowa, who spoke to people in our church. He talked about the Meskwaki history and how they had to move from eastern part of this continent all the way through Iowa and then ended up in Oklahoma and Kansas. But the ingenuity of this people made them shift their perspective, and they said, we're going back to Iowa because we're going to buy land there. They bought 80 acres, which over time, since 1857 till now, has bloomed to 8,000 acres. That ingenuity is also shown in their project or mission to, it's called Meskwaki Food Sovereignty, and it's to provide the seeding, growing, and harvest in the way of the indigenous knowledge. Another experience I had was in North Dakota. I traveled there to visit my friend Karen, who was a minister at the UU Church in Bismarck. I found out through her that her church was the only congregation, only church in all of Bismarck that did anything in solidarity to the water protectors at Standing Rock. That relationship continued. In fact, when I was there, the family of Little Feather, who had been incarcerated and who was incarcerated at that moment when I was there, the family relied on the church for solace and support. I was moved by that because I realized what the result of that was a solidarity, a allyship that the UUs there were able to provide. That moved me to think about how we at our church could do more for solidarity. A year ago, June, I traveled to northern Minnesota. There were big protests going on up there, and some of it was talked about in the children's story about the water protectors. The water protectors were trying to prevent a pipeline going through all of northern Minnesota, carrying tar sands from Alberta to Duluth. They were protesting because this pipeline would disturb natural areas. It would destroy the wild rice lakes where they rely on for food and for selling. It was their income. And so they were really frustrated by this lack of ability to stop this pipeline. And they again used solidarity to bring in people from all over to protest this. I remember three really important things that kind of burned into my mind as I was there. The first one was the water ceremony that took place on the banks of the Mississippi River. That was very moving. There were 2,000 people there to listen to the water ceremony, but to also be there to protest. Another thing that I just can't get out of my head are these two grannies sitting in lawn chairs, chained to a gate that's blocking the construction of the pipeline. Well, those grannies were arrested, put into jail, and charged with aggravated misdemeanor. I was moved by that because I realized that you don't have to be a certain age or a certain background. There were people, 250 people were arrested and put into jail during those couple days. And I realized that sometimes you just have to stand up. That inspired me to do more standing up. The third thing was the court scene. So going into the county courthouse and watching these people get arraigned and having them walk in with their orange jumpsuits and their disheveled hair from being in jail overnight moved me, because I knew that in their heart that they had this fiery resistance. And I knew that maybe I could develop more of that. It was truly inspiring. So these gifts from indigenous people are not the only gifts the earth needs. The gifts they need are also from us.
Thank you, Sally. Hello, everyone. This is a beautiful space. Thank you for inviting us here. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. My name's Miriam Kashia. I'm a retired psychotherapist from the Iowa City area. And I'm going to share with you this morning why I am a keeper of the earth. My life has been blessed by adventures in the natural world from when I was a child, and it persists to this day. Even as I approach the ripe age of 80, I still love hiking, biking, kayaking, and cross-country skiing and camping. Every single day, I walk outside to absorb nature's wonders. I've also paid attention my whole adult life to scientific reports of pollution of our air, land, and waterways, and the mass destruction of habitat of our animal kin. I followed disturbing scientific reports about global warming for over 20 years with increasing alarm, until 2014, at the age of 71, determined to put my concern into action. I walked 3,000 miles across America from Los Angeles to the White House with the Great March for Climate Action. We were a ragtag group of ordinary folks of all ages, sounding the alarm, walking, camping, holding rallies, speaking to local folks and press, and talking everywhere we could about the impending climate catastrophe. This very congregation hosted us when we walked through the Quad Cities in August of 2014, just before we crossed the Mississippi, joined by your mayor. Any of you remember that? Yeah, thank you again. That arduous journey transformed me and my life. I started as a concerned citizen and ended up as a climate action warrior. Protecting our earth, our mother, is a sacred calling for me. And in these heartbreaking, chaotic, and dangerous times, my motto is, action is the antidote to despair. So, this is my climate action shirt. I walk across the country, Great March for Climate Action. Y'all see? It says, I stand with Standing Rock. On my 3 trips to Standing Rock in support of the indigenous resistance to the DAPL pipeline, I learned that warrior means protector, just like in the children's story. Protecting the earth, our mother, is a sacred calling for me, as I have said. And warrior means protector in the Lakota language. Since then, I've been arrested 4 times for nonviolent direct actions attempting to halt the escalating destruction of our planet home. Indigenous friendships, wisdom, and action have been an integral part of my journey as we marched and protested side by side. I was amazed to learn about the ancient Lakota Sioux black snake prophecy, which you also heard about in the children's story. Dave Archambault, the chairman of the Lakota Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, describes it thus. There is an ancient Lakota prophecy about a black snake that would slither across the land, desecrating sacred sites and poisoning the water before destroying the earth. The prophecy said the snake would be above the ground. And what do we see? Black highways all across the nation. The prophecy also says when the black snake goes underground, it's going to be devastating to the earth. Standing Rock was a community of prayer, ceremony, and cooperation. Amazing accomplishment, resistance, and truly an indigenous cultural renaissance. I visited the camp in support 3 times. First, April 2016, I went to South Dakota to support the Lakota people at the only hearing on the proposed DAPL pipeline allowed them by the Army Corps of Engineers. They were limited to 2 hours to make their case against the DAPL permit. It was intense and heartbreaking to hear grandmothers, chieftains, youngsters, indigenous scientists, and many others speak about the potential devastation to their water and sacred sites. At the end, a cold-hearted Army Corps of Engineer captain said, "Thank you for coming. Now we'll do our job." And they issued the permit. While I was there in April of 2016, I heard about a new campsite called Spirit Rock, about 20 miles north into North Dakota. So I went there. I found a kitchen lean-to, a few tents, 1 teepee, housing about a dozen Native peoples and allies. Little did any of us know what was ahead. 5 months later, in September, I returned. This time, there were 10,000 people from all over the world in a huge, well-organized tent town. At that time, it was the 2nd largest town in North Dakota, with over 150 tribes represented. While I was there, 500 clergy of many denominations from around the country came in support of Standing Rock, and I was proud to see so many UU clergy among them. On the day after the election in November of 2016, I crawled out of my tent at Standing Rock, not knowing who had won. Then I saw my friend's face. I knew. I fell into her arms, sobbing. She took me by the hand and led me to the center of camp, to the large gathering around the sacred fire. A woman I knew from the mental health first aid teepee where I was volunteering saw my distress and came up to me. She said she had just spoken to one of the elders and wanted me to know what he said. Today, we will drum, dance, and sing, and we will not give in to fear, because it is fear that feeds the darkness. The DAPL was completed in 2017 and pumps up to 1 million barrels of oil, dirty oil, per day from North Dakota shale fields across South Dakota, Iowa, and to Patoka, Illinois, where it is refined and shipped to the Gulf for export on the world's markets. To this day, there is no completed environmental impact statement, even though it was a prerequisite for the IUB report permit. Oh, you can all see this. Now, the black snakes are again threatening Iowa. There are 3 petitions before the Iowa Utilities Board for construction of carbon capture and storage, CCS, pipelines around Iowa. They're called the Summit, the Navigator, and the Wolf. They weave a nasty web through much of our state. They will, if they're permitted. Their purported purpose is to capture carbon emissions from ethanol plants and ship it via pipeline to be stored safely underground. There are no adequate safeguards against a ruptured pipe because CO2 is heavier than oxygen and displaces it. Everything within a mile or further is at risk of death, and emergency vehicles cannot operate without oxygen. Although the pipeline companies claim these CCS pipelines will help with the climate crisis, the scientific evidence says otherwise. There is only one reason for these pipelines to be constructed: money. And the billions of taxpayer dollars for this unproven and dangerous CCS technology will take funds away from safe, proven methods of capturing carbon and further enrich the already wealthy. I won't go into more detail here about these pipelines, but please stop on your way out at the table we've set up to get more information. Sign an objection card, which I'm going to read to you, that's going to go to the IUB. And there's also a petition to your County Board of Supervisors for them to file an objection. So I'm going to read what it says on the postcard that I'm asking you to sign. All you have to do is put your name and address on the front. What you want to say is on the back. And here's what we're sending. The top has the 3 docket numbers of these 3 pipelines. And it says, these proposed CO2 pipelines threaten to form an extensive web of hazardous CO2 lines throughout Iowa. If approved, these pipelines will extend the use of oil and ethanol while it is clear the world needs actual proven clean infrastructure, such as wind and solar energy. 2, allow eminent domain abuse. CO2 pipelines do not benefit the public, and research does not support the claims that this would be a viable option to lessen the impact of industry on our atmosphere. 3, damage our land permanently. As seen with oil pipelines in Iowa, farmland was irreparably damaged at the expense of farmers. And 4, pose a huge safety threat to rural and indigenous communities in the occurrence of a leak or explosion. I urge you to vote no on these dangerous, unproven CCS pipelines. So stop at the table, sign your name, and we'll keep them and mail them all together to the IUB. But there is also a lot of good news. The No Iowa CO2 Pipeline Coalition is very strong, and we learned a lot from the DAPL struggle. This coalition is comprised of Food and Water Watch, Science and Environmental Health Network, CCI, y'all know what CCI is, and Des Moines Citizens for Community Improvement, a very powerful statewide organization, the Great Plains Action Society, an indigenous organization centered in Iowa City, the Sierra Club, and the 100 Grannies for a Livable Future. That's our coalition, and we are powerful. There are well over 1,000 landowners who have joined the Resistance Coalition and are committed to refusing to sign voluntary easements. They also have access to an experienced law firm, which is representing a huge collective of landowners in the 4 states that would be impacted by these pipelines. And I need to add, in closing, that the pipeline companies have been using manipulative pressure, lies, and illegal tactics to get landowners to sign easements. Folks, we are keepers of the earth. Thank you.
I'm going to finish up talking about where should we go? How can we be better keepers of the earth? I think of things in terms of maybe like the learning and the talking side. So there's books. One book that I've enjoyed is Braiding Sweetgrass, and the reading from the very first reading that Lori did this morning was from that book, and it's by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I think that there's millions of other books. I'm not going to go into that. Your librarian can help you with that. But I also want to point out websites, because websites can also give you information. So the one that, actually the 2 that I like are the Meskwaki, and it talks about what their efforts are agriculturally and as well as culturally. But then there's the Great Plains Action Society, and they're a larger group taking in more than just Iowa, and they are talking about doing some activism. So check out that website. Another thing to do to learn is to invite speakers, form a study group, but it's important not just to take everything in, it's important to talk about it as well as you take it in. Miriam also already talked about writing. So she had the postcards, and those you can sign those postcards here, but you can also sign a petition to the Scott County Board of Supervisors. Writing can be to the letter of the editor, or you can write an email to the supervisors. So just think about, if you like to write, think about how you can use that gift. And finally, there's action. And there will be hearings. I'm not sure of the schedule for Scott County, but there will be hearings, and attend a hearing. You will by your presence, it will be taking an action. Also, we have signs. You can take a sign and put it in front of your house. The pipeline for Scott County goes from west to east doesn't quite hit Davenport, but then there's another pipeline that goes north, and that one goes to Clinton. So there's two parts of Scott County that are going to be affected, and that will be everything in its path. Wetlands, sensitive nature areas, rivers, streams, you name it. We all have gifts for Mother Earth. We all can think about, what is my gift? So as you go to coffee hour or as you drive home with your family, talk about those gifts. What kind of gifts can you give Mother Earth? Thank you for having us.
Our closing hymn is number 1064, Blue Boat Home, Please Rise in Body and or Spirit. Oh, below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sun, sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
My name is Kathy Weideman. I can never make it through that song because it makes me cry every time. I want to thank Sally and Miriam for being here today. I don't think you probably know that we have our own blacksmith in the Quad Cities right now that is carrying coal tar from Alberta to Louisiana and we'll be increasing the number of trains that go through our city 3 times to nearly 22 a day. So we're all fighting the black snake. Because this was a joint service today, I have 2 closing words. I have a closing word that I'd like to share with you from Miriam and Sally. And it's from Robert Kaufman. We have come together to share our deepest concerns, speaking and singing words of inspiration and hope. We have committed ourselves to do what we can to ease the burdens of those who suffer, to stand for decency and compassion. We have pledged to work for a more wholesome environment for us and for all the generations that will follow. But these are just words. The hymns we sing are just songs. All our reflections are just idle thoughts. When we convert them all into loving and responsible action throughout the week, then and only then will this morning become what we want it to be, a time of worship. I would also like to share a short poem called Verb Streams, written by Nancy Cogan Adams, who was a chaplain at the University of Iowa. It actually was posted in October 30, 2015, I don't know where, by the 100 Grannies. So there is a connection between those. Yeah. Mining, drilling, moving. Removing, using up. Fossil fuels, depleting wilderness. Depleting, disturbing, biodiversity disturbing, eco balance, altering life forms, eliminating possibilities. Stop, look, listen, wise up. Live well, dare loving earth care. Leave light footprints. Flow, go, slow. What then? No. Amen. I invite you now to extinguish the chalice, and the words are on our screen. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth or the warmth of hope. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you again, Sally and Miriam, and please join us downstairs for coffee and discussion.
Don't forget to stop at our table on the way out.
Stop at the table.